Good to meet you.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Dan, how about yourself there? Are you in the forest there today, or what's
Today I decided to do drapes. Normally I had that window open, but it gets a little warm and then I'll start sweating on the call. So, but good morning. Thanks so much for doing this with us this morning, Keith. I'm actually new to Dave's team. I started last Monday, so this is officially day 9, I believe. Yeah, day 9. So it's been a complete joy being part of the team, learning a lot of new language, new business, new everything really. I mean, it's just been incredible. So I couldn't be more excited to be part of this group too. And, just getting to know some of you guys on this call is just showing the incredible amount of integrity that we're going to have through this business. And it's just exciting. So thank you so much.
Oh, welcome. New beginnings. That sounds exciting.
New beginnings.
See, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Keith. I appreciate your time. I do residential mortgages, and I do been in the business about 16 years. So just kind of pour into the partners that I work with and the clients I work with, and 100% referral based business. So kind of lead with service and then education first, and then and the business follows from there.
Great. Bet you're busy with the historic low interest rates, huh?
A little busy.
Yeah, is it Ariel? Did I pronounce that correct?
Yeah, Ariel.
Ariel, sorry.
That's okay. You actually did better. Some people say Arlene, or they just completely butcher it. So, yeah, my name's Ariel. I'm the managing director for a company called BBG, and we do commercial valuation and appraisal, and also third-party due diligence for commercial properties around the nation. So I manage the office in Phoenix, and then that also covers New Mexico and Nevada.
Yeah, great. Wow, busy. Okay, nice to meet you. Let's see, Ryan, beautiful family there. There's your background picture.
Hi, Keith. I can chime in for a moment here. I'm actually recovering from a knee surgery just the day before yesterday. So I'm intentionally not on video because I'm probably the one guy not in his office this morning. But I do run a private wealth management business in Scottsdale, and been doing that for just about a decade. And I really appreciate you coming on. I know who you are. I've been at Scottsdale Bible for a long time, so just good to see your face, Keith. Thanks.
Well, nice to meet you. I hope your recovery is swift and unremarkable.
Thank you.
And we got a good outcome for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. Tom? Let's see.
Hi, good morning. I work at Integrity Capital for Dave Cotter, who's previously there as a processor, and then recently moved more into a sales role. So learning lots with Dave, and it's been a fun and exciting experience.
Well, there you go. Good. Looks like a couple, I may spend my day on Zoom like you guys probably do too, but it looks like we got a couple other folks that maybe didn't come into my initial screen. Is it Kurt? Kurt?
Yes, that's me. I'm not on video. I'm dropping the kids off to school, but I appreciate you hosting, being a part of this. I'm a professional employer organization, or PEO, consultant and broker. So we help businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, build an infrastructure around their HR department.
Oh, great. Welcome. All right. Hands on the wheel there. Make sure those kids get to school safely, okay? Good. And is there a Paul? Does that look like Paul Valentin?
Yep. Good morning. So I am an attorney over at Quarles & Brady, and I help people buy and sell businesses. And, I've really enjoyed these programs and excited to hear your presentation.
Great. Let's see. Who did I miss? Gentleman there on a couch. Hi.
I run a insurance agency with Farmers Insurance.
Great.
Helping
Welcome.
people with commercial and personal insurance.
Great. Nice to meet you. Anybody else we missed? This is helpful for me just to sort of get what a great group and a lot of backgrounds and experiences. So I know David and I met just talking a little bit about this concept, and it's pretty exciting. David, did I miss anybody that just?
No, I think you got everybody on here. So yeah. We went around.
Good. Well, let's make this pretty interactive. I'm on a journey, just like you. You can probably tell just by the color of my hair. I'm a little further down the highway than I think probably all of you. And I think it was Tom made the comment. I've learned more from the mistakes, either intentional or unintentional. And so, that's I'm confident, or I guess it was John. I guess I'm looking forward to kind of learning from you. Does anybody have the courage to say that they have conquered and or optimized the priorities in their life, that work-life, we used to call it balance, now work-life integration, is just humming, you're in the flow? Is anybody kind of there that we can use as a subject matter expert today? So,
I think we're all here to learn from Dave Cotter.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, he's so relaxed, isn't he? He looks so relaxed. He is.
Keith, I was there before the COVID, but my whole life's upside down now.
Yeah. Yes. Isn't it for all of us, really? And of course, I'll whine about it because, healthcare particularly has been in the center of the storm. And I'll make some comments about that. The reason of the handout that David shared with you, it's got some blanks. Part of that's just to keep you engaged, and you're probably all like me, would be anxious if we didn't fill in all the blanks. So we'll make sure by the time we finish, we get all the blanks filled in. But I enjoy doing this a lot. I'm at that point in my career, as you heard from my introduction, that I actually have shaped my job I'm the senior physician executive for Dignity Health, which is one of the larger systems here in town. We have 6 hospitals here in the Phoenix area, from our flagship hospital, our 600-bed academic center. It's been here for 130 years. Oldest hospital in Phoenix, which is St. Joe's Hospital downtown, largest lung transplant program in the country, world-renowned neuroscience program. So we kind of have that big piece all the way out to a 16-bed hospital in Levine, a small hospital in a pretty depressed part of town, but a growing part of town now that South Mountain Loop is in. And what I had done, because I really enjoy visiting with professional colleagues like yourselves, is just spending some time thinking about our leadership journey. What is it, about being a leader that we can learn from each other? And so what I've extracted here with David's guidance is just a chapter. I'm going right now through this book by John Maxwell. If you're not familiar with John, he's trained as a pastor, maybe 40 years ago, transitioned into being a full-time speaker, writer. He's written over 40 books. And I went through his program a couple of years ago to become a certified speaker and coach with his program. But his material is generally very, very good. And the chapter I pulled out today is around priorities, as you saw. And I'm working with right now a group of about 10 physicians. The physicians I pick, of course, are the physicians that are leaders. So like myself, we're physicians leading physicians and nurses and teams. And, our natural pedigree doesn't necessarily train us into those roles. We tend to be independent, scientific people taking care of patients or working in an OR. And what I really spend at least 20% of my time on is working both collectively and individually with my physician leaders to help them grow as leaders, just like those that did poured into me over the years. And right now we're working through this book that John Maxwell rewrote after 25 years. And that's why the 2.0. It's Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. And it really kind of is not only the concepts that he originally wrote in the 80s, but then sort of he contemporized it, if you will, from a lot of things he's learned in his subsequent teaching. Good leaders always think ahead and prioritize their responsibilities. Isn't that true? And, we'll talk again about that. I quipped a bit, we're all given, God's provided us 24 hours a day. There's a lifespan that we all have. I think one of the great joys, one of the great mysteries that God has, we don't know how many days those are. I mean, when I finished here, I'm going to get in the car and travel to my office downtown. And this may be my last day on earth. And so, I think I don't want to be morbid about it, but, again, in my industry where I've been practicing medicine for 35 years, we see some great saves and some tragic losses on a daily basis. It just kind of keeps you humble and realize that, boy, I really want to make sure that I don't leave any strings untied today. I don't want to leave any relationships fractured that don't need to stay fractured. And so that's kind of the way, again, try to think about, the day that we have before us. And we're launching a whole new day that's a unique day. Whether you're managing your own calendar, whether you're on Outlook or Google or some other tool to manage your calendar, or whether you have an executive assistant managing that, something's going to fill your calendar today. It's really not a question of what's going to fill your calendar today, next week, next year. It's really what and how does that get filled. And so I think that's a little bit of a piece that we want to be thinking about. And one of the things that David is doing, and you guys and gals are doing, that I do with my team, is there's not going to be breakthrough rocket science stuff here. A lot of this stuff is stuff maybe it's framed with different words conceptually than you've heard. Maybe it challenges you to think about an area that you've been neglecting, and that's the content part. The more important thing I try to create with my physician groups, and I believe that you folks are doing with David, is you're creating a leadership community, which is really what I'm after. Because isn't it true that you're all in different industries and you may be in individual roles without a big team or in large teams, but the kind of work we do as leaders and or managers can be a little lonely. It takes courage. There's tough decisions. We're in coming out of a pandemic. It's been a lot of economic reversals. So it's not easy work, and to create a space where you can come together and kick around ideas, develop some level of what we call psychological safety, where you can sort of share issues that you're having with somebody, and you have a group of colleagues to bounce that off of. That's what I try to create with my teams, and that's really where the value is of having these conversations. But we use a topic to get us into those conversations. So, I put here the priority pressures that most of us feel. Tell me if this isn't true, that most people overestimate the importance of most things, especially as there's a lot of incoming stuff, whether it's new mortgage requests or various business opportunities or real estate deals. Having too many priorities paralyzes people. Isn't that true? I mean, kind of look at your calendar and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's on my calendar, or they double booked me for that, or if you got too many things coming at you, that can really paralyze you. And I think we've probably all been in that spot. And it's also true that when small demands get the more attention than they deserve, sometimes the big things, we either miss them or we don't pay the attention to things. It's easy to knock out the easy stuff sometimes, the low priority stuff, and sometimes that's a behavior that we're just trying to avoid something that's big and tough that we really should be, working on rather than letting it grow out of proportion. Number 4 is making everything a priority. Of course, then means nothing becomes a priority. And finally, sometimes it takes an emergency, and that's where John's comment comes in, to force people to prioritize, right? I mean, we had the first quarter of 2020. I mean, wow, unbelievable performance as far as the U.S. economy, world economy, and even our organization here, we're on a fiscal year that's July 1st to July 1st. We're Dignity Health in Arizona is roughly, we have 30 joint ventures, 5,000 physicians, 12,000 employees. We're roughly a $7 billion company just here in Arizona. So we're, a relatively substantial business here in Arizona. We were just knocking it out of the park, exceeding all of our goals. I kid people, I have both an MBA and an MD. I tend to use my MBA more nowadays than I do my MD. In my role, but all of a sudden, then bang, this virus shows up, and talk about an emergency reprioritizing. And basically the last 5 months, my life with my chief nurse and our team has been really focused in on all the stuff that we're dealing with in every state in the union. So it really, COVID-19 in my industry really helped us reset some new priorities, just like it has for you and your businesses. But I think it's true as a leader, and the further you get into your career, I think you probably would appreciate that. I like this little term that John uses here. The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook. and particularly with a lot of our backgrounds, we don't want to overlook anything. There are pro formas to be evaluated. There are due diligence to do. There's patients to see. We don't tend to want to skip any steps, or should we? But when you're a leader, there are a lot of things that come at you that really don't deserve your attention, and they need to be handed to somebody else. And that's one of the pieces about thinking about setting priorities and resetting priorities. So let's talk a little bit about some of the priority principles that John, and I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version. This is a great book. It's a great read. I know David's been reading it, so you pick it up if this sort of resonates with you. But this particular chapter, I'm giving you kind of the Cliff Note highlights just so we can get some conversation going. Working smarter has a higher return than working harder, but that seems pretty straightforward. And just realizing you can't have it all. I mean, we do have to pace ourselves and recognize, and this because you all are in the business world. There's opportunities. There are opportunities. There's high yield opportunities and there's low yield opportunities. So, but often, there's more opportunity than. So we just have to sort of meter our expectations. The good is always the enemy of the best, right? That's a real principle. I think we can aim, and kind of miss the opportunity. So, as a primary care doctor, with my pedigree, the reality is that often somebody's coming in as a patient, and it's an undifferentiated problem, and you're going through algorithms in your head and ordering tests, but often you've got to make a decision based on the best information you have at the time, not necessarily perfect information. And so I think that's important. And you see this in business. There's an opportunity. If I don't make an offer this week, if I waited a month, I could probably have more data in my due diligence. But you get that opportunity. And proactive beats reactive. And I think, again, we live in reactive transactional worlds, and that's just the reality. But I think the more we can be thinking ahead, anticipating, thinking a little more strategically, as well as tactically, I think that's really important. So let me pause there for a moment. Love to get some, I disagree with that. I love that. Or, yeah, that really resonates, or I'm struggling with that. So let's just pause for a moment and just see where we are with these concepts so far.
Keith, I had one of mentors of mine the other day. We were sort of talking about some growth stuff, and he said, you really have to focus on these three areas, which what you talked about really just hit home for me, which is, he said, you have to eliminate, automate, and delegate. And he just said, you have to really give attention to this idea of elimination. So when you said the art of being wise is knowing what to overlook, that just, it's an easy concept to understand, not always easy to apply. So but it's so true. We talk about that at our company, that we're not in the business of qualifying, but we're more in the business of disqualifying situations. And I guess that probably goes hand in glove with the idea of overlooking and then moving on. So yeah, that really hits home for me.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else, any thoughts or reactions just to this space?
One thing that I've realized you have to be okay with is that you kind of have to know your number and the amount of work you can take on, even if everything's very important. The day is only so many hours. So, picking and choosing what your number is and being okay with that, because we all want to be super successful. But if you can optimize and eliminate and delegate and all this, and then at the end of the day, there's a certain capacity level that you have to be okay with. I guess whether you're a doctor or you're overseeing doctors, there's going to be a certain limit to it to be able to do a great job at it. And so it's finding that number and being okay with it is important for me,
Kevin, that's a great point. Excellent point. And when in a few minutes, when we get to page 2 and talk a little bit about margin, I think it fits in very nicely in sort of thinking about that aspect of it. So thank you. All right, good. Well, let's, at the bottom of this page, if it's printed out the same way it is on my form here, we get into the importance of the important needs to take precedent over the urgent. And, there's kind of a grid here. It's probably better looked at in a 2x2 matrix. For those of you, I'm dating myself a little bit, but if you're familiar with the work of Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then all the subsequent business books that spun off of that, you're kind of looking at that sort of classic 2x2 matrix here, where there's things that are important versus urgent, and you put things in quadrants, and it's just a helpful way to sort of map things in your mind, because it gets back into maybe the points that David and Kevin just made, is that not everything rises to the level that you need to be focusing on. So if we take the first one, high importance, something's got high importance today or this week, and there's high urgency. Let's say there's a time pressure or financial opportunity. How would you tend to want to deal with that? How would you focus on that? High importance, high urgency.
Now.
Yeah, that's right. Good. That's right. Tackle first. That's worth adjusting things for. And got to have a flexible, pliable thing. The folks that sort of think sequentially, this really upsets them sometimes. But that you learn in business, man. If you don't move, you lose, right? Good. The second one is high importance but low urgency. How do you think? What's the best way to approach those sort of things? What have you learned?
3:30.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
What, Keith, could you, would you maybe use an example of that? Like, what would be something that would be highly important but low urgency? Because it seems to me that you're going to sort of probably spread that out over time and maybe, calendar that sort of over a period of time, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, you're exactly right. So I would think, for example, an annual budget, really going to be important. Perhaps it's not due for 6 months, but you certainly don't want to wait 5.5 months to start on it. Strategic initiatives, things that, are maybe less transactional and tactical this week, but really you want to get done this quarter. And the point is exactly what you point out, Dave, is that you need to set objectives and plan. So this is kind of where, from a priority standpoint, I block time in my calendar. I look out ahead over the next couple of weeks. I sit down twice a week with my executive assistant. We look at my calendar together. I know what's coming up. We make decisions about blocking out some white space in my calendar. So I have some think time to deal with those things that I know are very important. They're probably aligned to our strategy. But if I don't plan for some time on it, invest on it, that would be the way to approach that. So good. Low importance, high urgency. Coffee maker's not working. I don't know what, so how do you deal with the low importance to us? Again, I don't mean to be overly terse about this, but things that perhaps, given what we do and our highest and best use of our time in a leadership role, probably shouldn't necessarily consume a lot of time. Sometimes it does, but they're urgent to somebody or something. So what's the best way to handle those?
The way I handle it is delegation or automation.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
I set automated things that happen at certain times that I've learned that I get the same questions every time at certain time points. So I automate that specific task.
Yeah. And Kevin, you have got an example of maybe some of the things in your industry that you
So great. I mean, this is an easy one. So I always get questions 15 days after closing about where to send the payments or where's my payment coupon. So I do a voicemail drop about 15 days after, and I'll do it to my mother-in-law. Because it's so funny. I didn't do it to my mother-in-law, and she called me with the exact same question I always get. It's about junk mail, stuff they get in the mail that looks questionable, trying to get them to buy a deed of trust, and then where's my mortgage payment coupon. So I do that voicemail drop, and it limits the questions. So that's a great example. I use a client relations answering service essentially now, where they can schedule appointments for me or take a message. So I'm trying to have less touch points as far as back and forth. People will call and you go, oh, what time are you available? What time are you available? So I use a Calendly link to my calendar. So those are two examples that I try to mitigate those pieces.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I see. Healthcare is not, I don't know if you've noticed, not nearly as well automated. Yeah, yeah. So I've got a, gosh, we could use something like that. Have you, I mean, here, I've been doing this stuff for what, 35, 40 years, got an MBA, and I still can't, I have a hard time reading an EOB, an explanation of benefits, you know, I mean, gee whiz, what a mess our industry is in.
Yeah.
Oh, but good point. Yeah. So delegating, automating, I end up delegating a lot of this. I got a great team and, you know, so good example. And the last one is low importance, low urgency. Any insights on those? Used to call those drawer C, John, right? In your coaching, you know, that's sort of that stuff that really just need to eliminate. It's there, it's annoying, it's almost like a little duck bite, you know, nipping at your ankles, and you know, you gotta just try and, you know, those one of the things as David commented out, it's knowing what to overlook. So
Yeah.
if it's at
Low
all
importance.
possible, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, low importance emails.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's get a little more solution-minded here. We're hearing some great examples. A couple of things that John points out in this chapter is start with is thinking again now, proactive is better than reactive. And as we sort of begin to get into the rhythm, yeah, the Pareto principle, you're probably familiar with that. Italian economist, probably from your business training. John would redefine the Pareto principle for, you know, it's that 80-20 rule, but you know, for business, this is the way I'll just read it from the chapter. He says, when it's applied to business, it says that 20% of your priorities will give you 80% of your production if you spend the time, energy, money, and personnel on that top 20% of your priorities. So it's, you know, it's kind of a reciprocal way we tend to think about it. You know, 20% of my HR issues consume 80% of my time, or, you know, that this is kind of a little different way to think about it, that there's that top drawer stuff you're focusing on, right? The greatest return on investment, greatest opportunity. And so you want to make sure that that's in the right quadrant, that you're spending time focusing and you're getting sufficient energy. He says, you know, 80%, you know, it's just a rule of thumb, but that means you have to appropriate and focus in time, energy, resources into that. So is that something that you think about on your business cycle, whether that's a daily transactional cycle, weekly, monthly? I mean, do you tend to apply that type of principle in what you do? Any examples?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, one thing that I've learned being mentored by Dave at Integrity Capital is really just focusing in on the right priorities and the the activity-based results. So in the mornings, we spend our time connecting with people and going through our work of calling and just making sure we're touching the right contacts, and also building our relationships and flourishing those. And that could be through giving, relating to others, giving gifts, even just learning more about them. And so really that discipline of that, spending that time focused on that thing right there will help open up other opportunities down the road for your day or whatever that looks like. And just really having that discipline. So it's a really unique priority, and it's been paying off in major dividends as well.
That's great, Dan. Yeah, how about you? How do you tend to think about using your time? Do you have a variation of the Pareto principle in your work? Hannah, I don't know if you.
Okay.
Yeah, how does this apply down to St. Vincent de Paul?
So being in development, we're focused on the people who make our work possible. And so I spend the majority of time talking with, I have a list of about 300 people that have invested in our work and who are consistently supporting what we do. So my job is to reach out to them. So being disciplined with sitting down, with making the calls, with connecting with these folks as much as they want to be connected with. I set in the beginning a list of maybe like in a day, maybe 25 people I'm going to try to reach out to. And then if I only get a hold of maybe 4 or 5, because those are the ones that want to tell me everything that's going on in their lives and really want to connect because they're stuck in their houses and they're not really having many people to talk to. Those are some of the relationships I get to go deep with. So it's interesting being such a relationship oriented organization and also position within the group, that it's hard to like quantify people and relationships, because the depth is what's important. But if I set in advance, I'm going to take this time and call these people, and then just see what kind of comes of that. I try to take most of my time to do things like that, because we're just trying to get to know people really well and see what they care about, and see how we can help them reach their goals as far as their legacy, what they want to make happen here on Earth. So does that answer your question, kind of?
It does, yeah. There's a reason that folks in your industry are called development officers, right? You're developing relationality, aligning mission and vision, and that developing is like, working in a garden. You're not going to see the fruit tomorrow. Yeah, good. It's great example. I love it. All right, priority number 2 is the 3 R's. What's required of me, requirement, what's gives me the greatest return, R, and reward. What is the most rewarding? Now, Kevin commented a little bit about this, the numbers for the day and things. And, this is clear in business, right? Obviously, we all, some level, we have a boss, either it's somebody we report to, or a board, or whatever that looks like. If we're the owner of the company, then we have to sort of look in the mirror and make sure that, you do the work. And there is an opportunity for the biggest return and biggest reward. So there is that aspect that is the business lens to look at these 3 R's. There's also the piece of it about our personal and professional fulfillment. One of the things that I spend some time on, and I'm leading for our company, is there's been a lot written around physician burnout, nurse burnout. And so we spend some time, and we've kind of reframed that around what can we do to make healthcare more rewarding, more fulfilling for our colleagues. And so another lens to think about these 3 R's comes back to, what do I find most rewarding? And I commented earlier that I am at that point where I can shape my job a little bit to spend upwards of about 20% of my work week doing this sort of thing, because this is kind of what I was designed to do at this point in my career, is to invest and mentor and coach colleagues. And so I like this. I find this isn't depleting to me, this hour that I have with you folks. This is repleting, it's exciting, it's energizing. And that's kind of gets into that 3rd R. So I think as we think about very busy in the business world, some of you are in a long-term relationship, perhaps a marriage, got kids perhaps, or you will at some point, really sort of thinking about this from a sustainability perspective. So let me just pause there and see what kind of reaction I get from thinking about this from beyond just a business perspective.
I'll jump in if nobody else is. So I do a lot of thinking around this, and I call it the triad of awesomeness. It's like the 3 things that you're good at, you make money at, and that you enjoy. And there's definitely times when it's depleting, and then rewarding. So even if you have to do the depleting stuff, you need to make sure that you do the rewarding stuff peppered in, and then take breaks, sufficient breaks, even if it's a 5-minute break, kind of in between. So I think being aware of it and recognizing that is really important, and recognizing there's some stuff you're gonna have to do that's not fun, but it's okay because it's helping the overall picture. But you need to identify those 3 things. That's going to be the first key to this that I found.
I love it. That's great, Kevin. How about others? How do you deal with that kind of this balance to kind of make it more holistic? Does anybody jump in?
I'll jump in. So on the business side, mine is fairly simple. My focus and the highest and best use of my time, as far as what I'm required to do, the return and the reward, is spending time in front of prospective clients or active clients. I enjoy that process. The additional work behind the scenes is where I'm delegating to my team and working to offload that so that I can be rewarded for the time I spend with clients. Seeing clients excel, the business grow, and their leaves turn green. That turns my leaves green when I see them elevate to the next level. On the personal side, that's where I've constantly been challenged, trying to balance out where I get those that recharge, right? I regularly work out, and that helps. But I'll ride my bike past the golf course and say, I got to get out there and play some more golf. You know, I enjoy it, but I don't do it. So that's, you know, Zig Ziglar talks about the wheel of life, right? The balance. And that's something I'm always looking at is, am I balanced? What charges me, and to kind of land the plane, is I enjoy spending time with seeing my mom or my dad who are aging, my kids. So I really have to reach out, especially my daughter who's 16. I mean, I just got a victory, as Dave knows, getting her to spend time with me all day Saturday and go to dinner Saturday evening. So, because that's her social life. So I'm like, this is awesome. I'm looking forward to this weekend. So that's what recharges me.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. And thank you for your honesty and authenticity about that. That's, you know, that there's those choices we make, and, you know, we don't want to live a life of regrets, but, you know, I think just sort of having that self-awareness, as we talk about from a EQ perspective, you know, just kind of having it. Kevin made the same comment using different words. Really good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead?
Just a short comment on that. Yeah. So one of the things, see, I get so much reward out of the work I do in my business that there's that fulfillment, but it's not always the best way to recharge myself. So historically, I've been overly, focus too much on the work side and have to really push to make sure I bring in the other components.
Yeah, boy, so good. Taking that long view too. Yeah, it's good. Well, this third and final, not that this is the complete story on prioritization, but is, and I alluded to it in my response a while ago with Kevin, is making room for margin. So you're probably familiar with this term. It's been out, you know, and I bring it back to this kind of book that Dr. Dick Swenson wrote maybe almost 30 years ago, his original book called Margin. And, you know, he kind of anchored the definition of margin really in an engineering perspective. And it's margin is that space that exists between our load and our limits. Obviously, I'm not a civil engineer, but, you know, those of you maybe have an engineering degree, you know, obviously you build a bridge or a road, you know, you're anticipating what the load will be on that bridge. And you basically create a structure that would handle both the anticipated load and some variation in that. So, you know, and so there is a margin between what's going over the bridge and what the bridge can handle. And that's that concept of margin. And, you know, if we bring this into our lives from the perspective of doing exciting work, that John just said, you know, I felt a calling, if you will, a nobility to go into healthcare, and it's exciting, it's rewarding, and a lot of what we do, we get a lot of positive feedback from patients thanking us, and it's addictive in some ways. It's, you know, there's sort of that, you know, aspect of it, and you know, and yet over the long term, it can just deplete us down, even unaware. And I think it's just this sort of sense of being mindful of creating some margin in our lives. So, you know, there's that three parts of it. I just commented on the first one. The margin, if you create some margin, a day off, and I'll argue for some white space in your calendar, it does help with the self-awareness. Maybe even what Kevin was commenting about is taking whatever that looks like for you, maybe some pauses during the day to sort of, you know, resettle, recenter. Margin gives you some time to think. I don't know what your day's like, probably a lot like mine, that there's a lot of stuff that creeps in that has urgency. I'm always trying to sort what's really high priority, low priority, but really just having a little time to get above the tree level, if you want to think about it metaphorically, and just sort of gain a little sense above the forest. Margin provides you with energy renewal. I think a couple of you commented about that. It's a chance to sort of, you know, recenter, re-energize, rethink, reprioritize. How to create margin is to evaluate and eliminate continually. I go back to that very phrase I started with up at the top. Good leaders always think ahead and prioritize their responsibilities. You don't have to be just kind of type A about your calendar to do this, or even your budgets. And it's just sort of thinking ahead. It's sort of looking out over the horizon. There's some stuff I know is coming, tax season. I mean, Christmas, if you put it in a budgeting perspective, some stuff that's not coming that I want to maybe make sure I have some capacity to absorb the stuff that's not going to be predictable. Who would have known a year from now that we'd be dealing with a pandemic? So continually evaluating and eliminating. And then maybe we'll finish with this concept of fighting to keep 20% of your calendar as white space. Now, I've listened to John speak publicly. He actually now is pushing 30%, which I think is aspirational. It doesn't feel like reality for me. And then many of you that are in a much more transactional role, that's probably hard to appropriate. But I think the point of that is that sometime, whether it's 20% of your calendar, whether that's a day or a periodic day to get away and reflect on the business cycle, whether it's some time during your day, knowing your high and lower energy times of the day when you can do a little bit more. I'm a morning person, so I try to do my creative stuff, my writing, some of my thought leadership things early in the day, and then try to push the stuff that doesn't require as much creativity for me a little later in the day. So let's just pause there, and maybe I'd love to hear some insights that you've gained in your careers or in your lives that help you with creating some margin, or if you haven't yet, what's going to come out of today's discussion that maybe you want to make a commitment to. So thoughts?
Yeah.
I was sorry, do you mind if I go, Dave?
Go, Ariel.
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm digesting all of this, and I'm realizing as much as I thought I was a good prioritizer, that was such a far in my head. I mean, the first thing that I think of with the margin stuff, I was laughing because I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm an OCD, and I have everything color coded, and I have like no room to even breathe. And it's just really, I think these things, these concepts, which seem so simple, can be really difficult to apply. So as you're talking, I'm like making all these notes of like, okay, well, I need to make a list of what all my daily tasks are on that calendar to remove some to create that 20% of space. And I was like, probably should ask other managing directors how they do this, because I'm very new in this role where they've been doing it for years. So, I mean, I would love to hear from all of you, like, how do you create that space to separate like your daily time from taking a minute to take a break? I feel like I can never get away from my email or my computer, and somebody always needs something or wants something, and I never say no. So I'd love to hear like what you guys do.
Great, thank you for your honesty.
Yeah. Keith, maybe we have about 8 minutes left, so maybe, I don't know, Keith, if you want to chime in on that, or if anybody else, one other person too, just wants to give some thoughts.
I've got a thought on that. I was always told to delegate, the lesser responsibilities, but I was always afraid that they wouldn't get done. And what I did with Gabrielle, who she does everything in my agency, I empowered her, right? I told her how important she was. And that I couldn't do it without her. And then every task I gave to her, she either improved upon it, took it as her own. I never had to worry about it getting done ever again. And then she was able to duplicate the empowerment process with our new employees. It had nothing to do with the tasks. So
that's really good. Yeah.
And you have to have the right employee. I've tried to empower other people, and you give tasks to them and then they don't get done. But if you have a good team around you, that's what really helps out my agents.
Yeah, and I do. I'm just been struggling with, I can delegate to one person. I think it's other people, but that's great. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick chime in on this. So years ago, there was a pastor I was listening to, and he said, it's, for some people, it's really a discipline to work, and for other people that are high functioning, it's a discipline to create margin. So it's for me, that's the issue. It's, you have to fight, as Keith mentioned on this thing, you have to really be diligent to say, this is no time. And you have to have that time blocked out, and it's a fight, and you have to find something that's going to work with your personality to maybe, you know, have rejuvenation time. But I think it's a, you know, it's that's a discipline for sure.
I think there's two things. I think there's two main things that I did that really helped me, and did this a few years ago, and I probably need to do it again, is like your list. Do your not to do list. That's extremely important. That's the low importance, low urgency, not to do list. Extremely important. For example, I used to go out to my closings. I loved going to my closings, but it was 2 hours out of my day driving there, you know, hanging out with them and then driving back. Well, then I'm not helping the important, you know, then I can't get back to my family. So there's certain things you gotta put on your not to do list. It might be fun to do. You think it's important. The other thing is I mean, if you can delete email from your phone. I just did this about a month ago. I'm telling you, we all like cringe about this, but you have a computer. Why do you need it on your phone? Delete it. I'm telling you, it's like a game changer. So delete it from your phone, and then also bucket your email time. So you're going to find I come in the morning, because I'm not sitting in right in the morning, at night looking at my email, and morning looking at my email, obsessing about it. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything at 6 o'clock in the morning, like productive. So I come in, there's 20 or 30 emails. Somebody's already taken care of one of them. I may have to jump in another one. Another one's just marketing or whatever. 30 emails, 15 minutes, I'm done. Right?
That's good.
But if it's bing, 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 like it sucks the energy out of you. So those are the two things that are you have to do.
One quick comment I want to make. I concur and identify with Ariel on the margin. I'll tend to pack up. And my challenge is a deeper issue, right? I don't want to say no, which is really a deeper issue. As Dave and I have talked, and with others, is I don't want to be rejected. I want to please people. So that's a tough one. So what I've had to conquer is just to say no, and I'm still dealing with it.
Boy, that's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
So Keith, maybe you could, it's a really, I mean, that could get unpacked in a whole session, because it's a lot of meat there. So thanks for bringing that up, Ariel and Keith.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, no, and I want to thank Ariel too, to be just her honesty, and even just, you know, sharing a little bit about how she's wired. You know, like, you know, there's that, you know, whatever those pieces, either how we're hired or wired, or even some of the demons that haunt us as far as people pleasing and, you know, stuff from our past. So great tips, great ideas. Maybe one of the things that Ariel, that I think you've already done is reaching out to ask some advice. This group, colleagues at work, and I would even suggest maybe taking that to the next level is have a trusted person in your life at work, or maybe even out of this group that you, maybe there's chemistry, hold you a little bit accountable. Hey, I'm struggling with this. I want to build this into my life. Would you mind checking in with me once a month and just see how I'm doing on this? You know,
That's really good. Yeah.
Hey, gosh, the tyranny of time, huh, Dave?
Keith, this has been amazing, and we're so thankful that you sort of graced us with your time on this. It's a really important topic, and so we would love to have you back again sometime if you'd be open to it.
Absolutely, I love it. This is great. I did my MBA back in the 80s, and I was the only physician in the group, which was just great. I have no regrets, because I learned so much from other industry colleagues. So this feeds my soul, and in any way that I've been able to help each of you think things a little differently, it's been a pleasure. So thanks for having me. You guys have a terrific week. And I'd be remiss as one of the healthcare leaders in the state of Arizona not to remind you to mask up, because it's still a nasty deal out there. So blessings.
Blessings to you. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank
See ya.
you.